Hi, welcome back, and today we are tier ranking all of classic Doctor Who Season 4 from 1966 to 1967. So this season is a special one as it is the first regeneration season. So we have a couple of episodes of William Hartnell's first Doctor before he regenerates into Patrick Troughton's second Doctor. So let's get into the tier list. Season 4 starts off quite weak in my opinion with The Smugglers. It's a historical based episode and actually the first story to be directed by a woman on the show, which hurts so much because she was given a really dull script to work with. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just there's nothing to it that I enjoyed enough. So I'm going to put The Smugglers straight into Wibbly Wobbly. The Smugglers got a score of 2 and I'm now considering just putting it into Doctor Who. Yeah, okay. On second thoughts, I'm actually going to put it in Doctor Who. I feel a bit harsh, but if you ask me what happened, I've watched this thing twice and I can't remember. It just wasn't, nothing gripped me. MVP for the episode is Josiah Blake. Moving on to the first Doctor's final ever episode, which is the 10th Planet. Final episode for the first Doctor, first episode for the Cybermen. Like with the War Machines, this serial also featured individual episode title sequence for each part, which I really liked. They were quite unique and worked well for the vibe of the serial. The episode itself only scored a 3 overall. It was quite a mixed bag to me. Some episodes I quite enjoyed, some I just found a bit on the dull side. Overall, I think I'm going to put the 10th Planet into Wibbly Wobbly. I know I had an opportunity to put the first Cyberman episode into the Cyberman tier, but I just don't feel strongly enough in the positive about this serial. The Cybermen themselves, I quite liked the Mondasian Cybermen design and the vending machine look of them. I think that works quite well for a sort of first attempt at a cyber being. The only thing is the human hands being on show kind of defeats the point of being a cyber person. Also, Ben has a few good moments in this serial in the final episode when he figures out that the Cybermen can't deal with the radiation and he uses that to their advantage to save the day. But yeah, overall, this serial was it was okay. It was an episode. And the MVP for the 10th Planet is Tom Barkley. Next up is The Power of the Daleks, which is the second Doctor's first ever episode. I gave this one a 5 overall because I really liked it. It wasn't perfect, but I really did enjoy it. I loved the idea of the Doctor and his companions, Ben and Polly, on a new planet where humans had colonised it and they were rebuilding and realiving Daleks who were long dead. I thought that was an interesting concept and the way it happened really worked well. It wasn't perfect, but I enjoyed it enough to look past the imperfections on this occasion. So I'm going to put it into Fantastic. So yeah, that one's going to go into Fantastic. The Power of the Daleks was a good episode, I think. It nicely shows the effects of regeneration as well, and I think that Ben having a mistrust of, is this even the Doctor? And Polly being, no, we need to look after him, it's the Doctor, you know, Doctor, what do we do? That shows the two sides of the fandom, and I think that was a really forward thinking on the part of the writers, that people would have a mistrust about it, but other people would just be able to, okay, yep, this is happening now, and they'd just be able to get on with it. So I do like the fact that the two companions had those two different points of views about the regeneration, because it worked really well for helping the audience to understand regeneration and to accept it and accept that this is the new Doctor now. Similar to Clara and Deep Breath not liking the new 12th Doctor until the 11th Doctor calls in and says, hey, no, this is still me, I'm just a little different now. It's kind of like that, but done better because you have the two companions as the two sides of the fandom. Also, I think that the Matt Smith episode, Victory of the Daleks, took inspiration from this serial because there was a lot of similarities between those two and I really enjoyed it. And the MVP of the episode is Quinn. Next up is The Highlanders, which is the final pure historical until 1982. And this episode introduced one of the best classic companions ever in Jamie McCrimmon. I love Jamie, he's brilliant. Didn't love this episode though. I really wanted to because it was Jamie's introduction, but it was just a bit basic. It was a basic historical, there was nothing special about it. It got a 3 overall, and I think I'll put it into Wibbly Wobbly. There were elements I enjoyed, but there was more that I just found a bit okay, and that was it. So it's an okay episode, that's what I'll say. And the MVP of the episode is Kirsty McLaren. The next serial is The Underwater Menace. Now, I like the idea of the episode. I think the story idea is really interesting. I just feel like the execution wasn't there. And I'm not just talking about the really wacky costumes of the fish people. I just mean in general, the execution wasn't really there. It got another 3. And I think I'm gonna put it into Wibbly Wobbly again. It was okay. There was just nothing more to it to give it a higher score. And the MVP of the serial is Ara. Next up we have the Moonbase, which is another Cyberman adventure. This one showed the first appearance of the Telosian Cybermen, so it's a different version of Cybermen to what we've seen before, so that was interesting to see. This is another 3. This story also got a 3. I will say I do love the old Cyberman music. I'm not sure if it was just for Cyberman Adventures or if it was for other sort of fight scenes and intense bits, but the music they used for the Cybermen I really do like. So I give it that. But I do feel like I'm maybe not a huge fan of classic Cyberman episodes. I just feel a theme going when I rewatch Cyberman episodes that I feel like with Cybermen there's so much to do with the body horror aspect, but obviously in classic era Who they couldn't do that. We still don't really see much of that in Doctor Who now. In the series 2 episodes with the Cybermen in New Who, they do show a little bit more of the body horror aspect with the screaming and all the mechanical bits coming out, and they do show that. And then obviously series 10, one of the best finales, delves a bit more into the body horror aspects of Cybermen. But other than that, we don't really see much. The Tortured episode Cyberwoman could have delved into that because they were an adult show, it was an 18 show. They could have very much done pure body horror for that episode, maybe even with flashbacks to the Battle of Canary Wharf and the body horror of it, but they didn't. They would rather have a woman in a silver bikini than give a good body horror story. Anyway, back to Classic Who. One thing I really didn't like about this episode is that Polly is relegated to just being the coffee maker. With Dodo and Vicky before her, they had intellect and they used their minds to actually solve problems. Susan was a screamer, but Vicky especially used her intellect. Dodo was more intelligent than she let on. Polly is just, oh okay, I'll make the tea. That's all she has, and I don't like that. However, she was the one to figure out to use acetone in the little chemical formula that they were making up to defeat the Cybermen, so maybe I'm just being harsh because she was relegated to the coffee maker for a couple of episodes. Either way, the Moonbase did get a 3, and I think I'm going to put this in Wibbly Wobbly as well, alongside the other Cyberman episode of The 10th Planet. Yeah. And the MVP of the serial is Jack Hobson. Next up is the Macra, which was far better than I remembered it being. I thought before that it was a terrible serial, but clearly I was wrong with my recollection, because actually on a rewatch I really enjoyed this one. The Macra are quite good villains. The whole colony seemed really eerie and mysterious and creepy, which added to the intrigue of the episode, and it had a lot for Jamie and Ben to do. Not so much Polly, but Jamie and Ben at least had some stuff to do. This one earned a 4 overall on average, and I think I'm going to put the Macra Terror. I think I'm going to put this in upgrade in progress. I don't feel right about putting it next to Power of the Daleks, but it's definitely above the rest of them, so I'm going to put it in upgrade in progress. And the MVP of the episode is Medoc. I may be saying a lot of these names incorrectly. Next up is the Faceless Ones, which is a really interesting serial that I really enjoyed. Overall it got an average of 4, but these episodes were very mixed. It was the last appearance for both Ben and Polly, and I didn't mind the way they left the TARDIS. It was very similar to how Ian and Barbara left, that they realised that they had just returned to their own time and thought, yep, let's, quit while we're ahead. We're here now, let's just stay. Thankfully though, Jamie McCrimmon stayed. Honestly though, I kept forgetting about Ben and Polly during this serial. They weren't very memorable companions for me. Every time they weren't on the screen, I just completely forgot that they were supposed to be off doing something or that they weren't there. Jamie really stole the show as soon as he was put into it. Also with the ending, the Doctor says that, oh yeah, Ben, that's fine, you guys can go. Ben, you can go back to the Navy, and Polly, you can look after Ben. So Similar to 2 serials ago when she was relegated to the coffee maker, now this woman who had a career when the Doctor met her is now relegated to just being Ben's carer. Bearing in mind, she met him in the same episode that they became companions to the Doctor. So, what? Justice for Polly. Anyway, this story did earn a 4, and I think just because of the intrigue and the mystery and the story itself, I think I might put it into fantastic. I did really enjoy this one, and it is one that I would go back and rewatch just for the fun of it. So I think this one deserves to be in fantastic. And there are 2 MVPs for this particular serial, those being Samantha Briggs and Jean Rock. And finally we come to the last serial of the season, which is The Evil of the Daleks. This serial introduced a new companion, Victoria, and was intended as the final appearance of the Daleks. That didn't quite happen. But either way, I really enjoyed this one as well. This earned another 4. This serial was really interesting, and it wasn't perfect. There was a lot of issues I had in the first few episodes when I just didn't really care that much about what was happening. But overall, I think the story was really good, and the whole human factor aspect and the way that the Doctor saved the day at the end was really interesting. I liked that. The MVP of the episode are the Dizzy Daleks, Alpha, Beta and Omega, because they are adorable and need to be protected at all costs. I love the Dizzy Daleks. They are so cute. Also, fun little fact, Dalek Omega came before Time Lord Omega. So let's hope he doesn't come back as a CGI monster baby thing. Monster squid thing? I mean, that would be actually quite terrifying. One thing I will say about this episode as well is that people always talk about how manipulative the 7th Doctor is with Ace, but the 2nd Doctor was so manipulative with Jamie in this episode, and I haven't really heard anyone talking about that. And it's not in a bad way, it was for a reason, like he had to save people's lives. I get why both Doctors did what they did in their episodes, but I'm just saying, you know, 7 isn't the only manipulative Doctor. All of them are. They're all the Doctor. This episode, I think I'm going to put into upgrade in progress. I don't want to put it into fantastic just because I liked the end half of the serial, because the first half were basically 3s, so I'm not so keen on putting it in fantastic, but I'll put it into upgrade in progress. It was a good serial. And that is the season. So this one's a bit more middly than the last season was, which is an improvement. For the season stats, the most common score for an episode was a 3, and the average score overall for the season is 3.56. So it's not too bad, but it could be better. The quote of the season comes from the Faceless ones, and you need the action of the Doctor doing it whilst he says it. It doesn't work on its own, it's with him doing the action. He says, "See, I knew you wouldn't believe me," whilst throwing his hands up in the air. With the context, you understand why I want that quote as the season quote. I just think that works really well as the quote, because if you tried explaining anything that happens in Doctor Who to a character in Doctor Who and saying, oh yeah, there's aliens invading, they're stealing people and blah blah, who's really going to believe that? So it does, I like it. It does kind of show Doctor Who. But that is season 4. That is the first 2nd Doctor season, and that is the tier list. So do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you next time.